Good afternoon. Welcome everyone to this webinar by Andiligence. A quirky name for our webinar, but it is based on a new format that we are primarily trying to try and run as a series on a monthly basis. So what we have done is we've asked questions to our audience, to our members online on social media and our connections in terms of what are some of the objectives, pain points, and projects that they're running that they would want to know some more details about when it comes to on this topic, which is IT for manufacturing. So based on that, instead of the usual format that webinars are run by, which is a single topic, we said that why don't we take in questions and make multiple topics out of these questions, and that's how we've come out with this new format of webinar called the webinar. My name is Utaya. I'll be your host today. I am the managing partner at Andiligence. Before we start, let me just give you a quick hygiene on this webinar. So all the participants are going to be muted, and you will not be allowed to share your video. If you have any questions on the chat box at the right hand side, you can type in your questions during the webinar, but you address it to the host, and I will basically read out your questions at the end of the webinar during the Q&A session. Now, if you want to ask our speaker directly a question during the Q&A session, you can raise your hand and I will unmute you so that you can ask your questions directly to Mr. Ramakrishnan. This webinar is going to be recorded, so we will upload it after this webinar, after a few days on our YouTube channel, and you can access it, or you can even view it on our link. Let me quickly start by giving you an introduction to Andiligence. We are a management consulting firm. We specialize in the manufacturing sector, and we focus on multiple verticals in our company. We work on strategic assessments. We work on operational excellence transformations, which focuses on productivity improvement and cost reduction strategies. We work on factory design, where we primarily work with the customers, whether they're looking to expand their existing factory, or whether they're working on remodeling their internal layout, or even coming up with a brand new greenfield facility. We have a supply chain management vertical, and the vertical that is primarily in question today, which is IT strategy for manufacturing. Let me introduce our speaker today. Mr. Ramakrishnan Sudarshanam is our principal consultant, and he is heading our IT strategy for manufacturing. He is the ex-CIO at United Breweries Limited and McDowell's & Co. He brings over 37 years of experience in this field, with vast experience in basically developing new IT strategies for the enterprise, establishing any IT governance and frameworks, working with the internal teams in implementing some key projects. And he has a wealth of experience in this area and a wealth of expertise in this area as well. And we are glad to have him today as our speaker. Welcome, Mr. Ramakrishnan, and thank you for being here.
Thanks, Utaya.
So what we've done is we've sort of posted questions we sort of gave the platform to our connections to send in their questions with regard to their objectives, like I said, in the IT for manufacturing. And we've got quite a few questions which came in from our connections. And what we've done is we've sort of grouped them into 4 primary themes for this webinar, in terms of value, in terms of digitization, in terms of security for small and medium industries, and obviously, quite a few of them asked for, how we could sort of help. So we've also made a grouping in terms of the service that we offer. So with this, I will hand it over to Mr. Ramakrishnan to take it forward and start his session. Mr. Ramakrishnan.
Yeah. So thanks, Uthaya. Thanks for the introduction, and thanks for everyone who have joined, for taking your time and participating in this webinar. And I would like to start by sharing my screen. 1 minute. Is my screen visible to everyone?
Yes.
Yeah. So, like what Uthaya mentioned, we thought of doing this webinar in a different way. Rather than speaking on one particular topic, we thought, let us take questions, and we will probably try to find a common theme from that questions, and then probably talk about it, so that it becomes a little more focused, and probably people would be also able to get some value out of this webinar. So there are 4 parts here. Basically, one is a couple of questions were related to value, saying that how I can extract value from IT deployments. The questions were more around ERP. So we made it a little more generic to understand, because this is applicable to all the packaged software. The second thing was about driving digitalization. The questions were around how whether we should do when should we do those kind of things. And the other area was about security, because there were some questions regarding whether security is really important for small and medium companies. And last but not the least is the questions around how we can help in any of these areas to take you forward. So the way we have structured is that first probably we'll be putting the questions that has come in. Now these were the questions, about 3 questions, which were about SAP B1. My team relies on manual tools when it comes to production planning, warehouse management. Now people wanted to know whether it's a problem with the ERP, its capacity, or the lack of ability to use the tool. There's another question on IT department being a small team, totally involved in day-to-day activity of managing applications, and not able to really spend time on futuristic applications like digitization and all that. So how do I scale our IT department? The third question was around selection parameters. With so many options available today, how do we select a product? So I will try and answer these things. So basically there are 3 parts to this, starting with first is talking about selection of an IT solution. Now when you want to select any package solution, an ERP, or for that matter any other supply chain solutions, or an HR, HCM solution, so whatever it may be, first and foremost is that you need to be prepared with what is the objective of, why do you want to implement the system? What is it that you are expecting from there? What are the issues that you are trying to resolve? Now, unless this is clear, invariably, if this is clear, you will be able to select an application much better way. Now, let me give you some examples, saying that, for example, let us say if you are implementing ERP for the first time. Now, many times the focus would only be on integration, because prior to an ERP implementation, you may have some disparate system. So the most challenges with disparate system will be they will not be integrated with each other. So you may have different values coming from different systems, and ultimately they don't tie up with each other. So the objective could be like an integrated, reliable MIS. So that could be an objective. Sometimes, you may have a reasonably good system for managing the transactions, but you may want to have a planning module, or planning is something must probably maybe a key focus area. Sometimes it could also be because of the nature of business. Now, while you may be having an ERP for one line of business, maybe the other line of business, sometimes the same ERP may not work. The classic example is in a real example that I cannot name the company, but there was a company who was into watch manufacturing, who were implementing SAP for their watch manufacturing process. But when they entered into jewelry business, they felt that Oracle ERP would be a better fit for that business because of the nature of processes involved in jewelry, which is very different from watches. So these are some of the things, that unless and until you have all these things in place, you will find it very difficult to select a product that meets your requirement. So that's the first thing. Be prepared with the objective and outcome that you expect. Second, of course, is the important thing is to understand what is the kind of budget that you have allocated for this, because different solutions comes with different pricing. There are expensive solutions, there are mid-market solutions, there are cheaper solutions. Now everything will have its own pros and cons, but then you need to be clear as to what is the budget that you want to spend, and while you are selecting the budget also, you've got to keep in mind that the expectations also should be in line with the budget that you are allocating for this. The next important thing is in terms of support from leadership. Now, all these kind of package solutions requires a lot of changes, and it might impact the entire organization right through across all functions. Especially a package like ERP will definitely cut across every function in the company. So, and then it also takes time to implement. It involves cost. So unless there is support from senior leadership, you may not find the solution implementation very successful. But this is one challenge that many times faced by many companies, including large and small, is that sometimes the senior leadership thinks that only by allocating the budget and sanctioning the project is good enough. But that is not the end of it. That is just the beginning. Now, they need to be present during all those steering committee meetings to ensure that the product, the implementation is going on properly, and also wherever their support is required in terms of either making some changes in the process or making some other decisions which may need approvals, they should be available for approval. And the next important point is in terms of making sure that all the key people who are going to be impacted by the solutions are available. Now, normally what happens is that general practice is that till the ERP product is selected, for example, I'm talking about an ERP example, till such time the product is selected, very limited involvement will be there from the from all stakeholders. Invariably, the responsibility will be given to IT, who would probably scout around for the product, prepare a note on what are the various offerings, organize a demo of the system, take feedback, and then take a decision. Now, if you are able to involve these people in a little more, deeper at the time of selecting, then what happens, you will be able to extract the knowledge and the wisdom that these people have in terms of the experience that they have, not only within the company, also their cumulative experience they can bring to the table, and help the decision to be taken in a more, democratic manner, and also ensuring that, the package meets the requirement. And there is some amount of ownership and commitment when they are involved at the start. And solution functionality should fitment is also another important thing. Just now I gave an example of a company where for watch manufacturing they were using SAP, but for jewelry business they were using they decided to go with a different product. Now, one of the fundamental reason is sometimes certain products are very suited for certain industries. Like for example, certain packages may have some add-on industry solution for a specific industry. Like it could be aeronautics, it could be a process industry, or it could be an industry like agri products or things like that, where there is commodity procurement and things like that. And then the other thing is important. 1 minute, just a minute. Screen is getting covered here. Yeah. The other thing is you should always be open to taking assistance from external consultants, because many times these selections or these decisions are very important decisions. There's a lot of money involved, and you don't get an opportunity to change these solutions in a short duration. So sometimes it is useful to take external help, people who understand the various solutions that are available, people who understand the industry, people who have got some experience dealing with such products, and then use their experience for selecting the product. So this is what is important. These are the points that you need to keep in mind when it comes to selection of an IT solution. So once you select an IT solution, the next thing is around implementation. Now, what is important for implementation again is that ownership from the business is important. Now, many times what I've seen is that, for example, for implementing a product, there will be a core team formed. If the product is like ERP, there could be members from different functions. If the product is around HR, maybe people from HR and finance function. So depending on that, the nature of the packaged application, different members will be involved in the project. But what I've seen when they are deploying people or forming a core team, many times importance is not given to what kind of person should be put on the project. And I've seen many cases where, because this person, when you put him on the project, he will not be available for your normal work for a period of time. It could be 3 months, it could be 6 months, it could be 8 months, depending upon the scale and of the project. So many times people will not try to put their best people on the project. So that is a big mistake that people would be doing. So what is important is to put your best guy in the sense, somebody who knows what is the processes in and around that area, and who has the ability to communicate, who has the ability to convince, and who has the commitment and the dedication to be part of this project. So there are various ways you can achieve this. One is you can have a key guy at a junior level to be part of this project, but at the same time somebody like a department head could be a process owner. Now, process owner could be somebody who would sign off each and every processes that is going to be configured in the new system. So multiple ways this can be handled, but important thing is that key stakeholders have to be involved in the project during the implementation. The other thing is that many times these package solutions come with certain best practices. So people have to be open to exploiting some of these best practices. It doesn't mean that you have to implement everything that is given by the package, but you should always be open to making changes in your legacy procedures and practices, because some of these practices that the package offers are normally built over experience of implementing this package ever in several large companies, not only in the country, even outside the country. So once the core team is there, and then you're open enough for the new procedures to be implemented and embraced. Training of people is key. Now, training is something that the more the time that you invest on this, the better would be the outcome of your solution. And training also has to be done not as one installment, just where you get them all together, just train them on everything, start to finish, and then send them back. But that will not work because people will not be able to absorb all these things. So training has to be done in multiple phases. There should be a first level of training where you will give them certain exposure, get them familiar with the product, and once they are comfortable, probably will organize the next round of training. So this could be done in a phased manner so that ultimately everybody is trained on the system. And in terms of implementation, there are multiple approaches that you can take. Normally, some people prefer a phased approach because suppose if you are doing for the first time, let us say a product like ERP, which cuts across the entire organization, you may not be able to implement everything at one go. So you may decide to go in a phased manner. Now, this phasing could be done in different ways. One is it could be based on a physical location or a factory, or it could be for one line of business, or it could be one function. Multiple ways this can be approached. But it is not necessary that you always have to follow a phased approach. Suppose if you have already been user of an ERP system, and let us say because of various reasons you are planning to change to a better ERP or a more functional ERP system. So maybe you may be internally matured, the process may be matured, and people may be matured enough to take on the entire implementation to go live in a single shot. Now, there are pros and cons of each of them. Now, typically, when you go with a big bang, going all the modules across all the entire company, across all functions, all business, what happens is that after the implementation, from the day it goes live, everything is on the system. So probably at 12 months down the line, you may be able to extract all the data that is required from that system without having to depend on any other system. On the contrary, if you go on a phased model, what happens? But there are challenges with big bang implementation. Is that if it is not done right, the whole business will come to a standstill. On the contrary, if you take a phased approach, you are taking only one component or one area or one business line to implement. So what will happen is that the risk of implementation is less, because if there is something going wrong, only that particular function or that particular location may be impacted. But the con of this is that by the time you implement solutions across all these locations, by the time you have a consolidated view, one single view of the whole organization, it may take time. So those are some of the decision points that people have to keep in mind to make sure that what is the right approach for me. And the key thing in any package implementation, because the packages, as I mentioned earlier, also it comes with a lot of best practices. So there's a lot of experience of various implementation over time. So what happens is, it may require a lot of data that you may or may not have, because your legacy system may only be having a very small amount of data, just good enough for making the system work, functional. Whereas a package system many times requires a lot of data. Now, if this is not given importance, invariably I have seen many implementation getting delayed by months because of this lack of data not being available when it is required. Now, couple of strategies that I can recommend here is to start working on data once you know what are the data that is required. And it would be ideal if the data is available before you do the testing of the system. Now, I can give an example of a company where, the entire data was arranged 3 months before the system was expected to go live. And all the users were given their own set of data to train. So what happens, let us say if you are in a tire business, and if a user is able to look at his own product of tire, whether it is manufacturing or selling or purchasing, it will become more easier for him to operate that system, rather than giving a test system with some artificial data like a cycle or something else, which probably he may not be able to resonate with. So having data for doing testing, doing the final testing of the system, will always help in helping the user to understand, and you also will know what is the kind of value that he's expecting, because he would have already got those values with him in his existing system, either manual or whatever existing system that he has. So these are some of the important factors that has to be kept in mind while you implement the system. So once you implement, the next phase is the ongoing sustenance of these solutions. Now, what happens is that the stakeholders who were there during the implementation, they should continue to invest their time. Now, what I've seen in many implementation is that the core team which is formed during the implementation gets immediately disbanded the moment the system goes live. And those people who has all the knowledge of the system is sent back to his function. Now, what happens at that time is that these people will not be available, and once he goes back to the function, he will be busy with his day-to-day activities. And people in IT would be carrying the burden of implementing this and managing it over time. Now, what happens here is that during the implementation, you may not be able to take advantage of every feature that is available in the system, because again, it depends upon what is the objective that you have set up. Suppose your objective is to digitize the processes, you may probably focus on all the transactions and making sure that all the processes are configured. Maybe too much of focus may not have been given on planning or any other area that is there, or maybe automated reporting or approval systems and things like that. So what happens is that once the system is gone live, it is very important that there is continued investment by people in the system. And other thing is in terms of training. Training is something that you have got to constantly do, because what happens after implementation is that one is there is change of people. And sometimes, different people, new people may come in, and some other people may be transferred from one department to another department. So all these people need to be constantly trained. And other thing is that sometimes people tend to forget certain things which they don't do on a regular basis. Like, for example, there are certain transactions that he has to perform on a system, probably let's say once in 2 months or once in a quarter, may not be every day. So he may forget how it has to be done. So there has to be something like a refresher training, which you need to conduct on a regular basis. And sometimes what happens is, as part of your product upgrade or enabling of new features, users may still have to be trained on how to use a new feature. So training of users on an ongoing basis is key. The next important thing on sustenance is that every solution will come with new and new features. So long as you have a maintenance contract signed up with the vendor, there will be new versions, new releases coming from time to time. And it is always better to take advantage of some of these new releases. It doesn't mean that every version you may have to upgrade. You have to evaluate what are the new offerings that you have in that solution, and then decide how important is that features and functionalities, and then decide to go with the upgrade. But upgrades are something that you have to do. There is no way you can upgrade, because sometimes upgrades are also done for reasons such as stability of the software. Sometimes it could be enhanced security. Sometimes it could be because of the enhanced environment, features that it's environment, technology, advancement that has happened. Because of that, you have to take advantage of that. So there will be an upgrade that you may have to do from time to time. You always have to make sure that you take advantage of that. The other thing is, sometimes what happens is, after the package is implemented, people will expect the IT team to maintain it from there on. Now, what happens in that sometimes the IT team will get so bogged down by these things that they will never be able to focus on anything new. So the right strategy would be is to take external help when it comes to certain technical aspects. Free up the IT's time so that they don't get bogged down by making small changes in the system over time. But while outsourcing or leveraging external expertise, always keep in mind that the core understanding or the functional experts who understand the systems are always internal. There is a saying that they normally do, saying that mind inside and hands outside. That means the understanding of how the system works, why it was chosen to do this fashion, all those things, those knowledge should be kept internally. Whereas exactly how it has to be configured in the system in terms of what checkbox has to be ticked or what line of code has to be created, those are something that you can outsource. So this way, you will be able to free up your internal IT team and ensure that they are able to focus on newer initiative rather than getting bogged down by maintaining of the system. So this is what I thought I will cover on the 3 questions that we had in terms of how to extract value from IT deployments. So basically, we covered, in terms of selection of the product, we covered in terms of implementation, we also covered in terms of sustenance. So I hope that these questions that was raised, these slides help you to understand some of these things. And we are always open to questions at the end. So if there are any questions, you can put in the Q&A box or chat, and we can discuss this post the webinar. The next theme was on digitization. So some of the questions were like, we are a manufacturing SME with 70 crore, with limited capacity for capital expenditure. Should we be moving towards smart manufacturing, IoT at this stage? Or should we wait? What is the difference between SCADA, MES, and IoT? Is there a roadmap to implement these technologies on our shop floor? Our staff has been used to old school of working since companies. What kind of cultural change do we need to make digitalization implementation successful? So I will try to answer these things in 3 things, in terms of starting with probably, why digital is important. So this is true for everybody, because no matter whatever company is small or big, it is a fact that digital technology has revolutionized the way business is conducted, and it has impacted everybody. So you must have seen in the pandemic itself, everybody started leveraging e-commerce. Everybody started making payments using GPay, Paytm. So digital is something that has impacted everybody, and this will continue to, move forward in the same fashion. And this digital change is rising so much that there is so much of thing happening in this area that I don't think any organization can say that I will not embrace digital. Because as a customer, every customer is always looking for, a good experience. And if the experience can be rendered, especially the millennials, if it can be rendered through digital, especially let us say if he can do most of his work using mobile, then that is what probably will stick him to your brand or to your company's products. And the other thing is, customers are, see, the pandemic has already made people work from home, shop from home. So shopping everything, sitting in your comfort of home, is something that people have got used to. So if, as an organization, if you do not provide for an alternate channel of buying the products and services over e-commerce platforms, definitely the customer would choose those companies and those brands which offer them that facility. And why these digital technologies have become so prevalent? On the right side, you will see some technologies that I have mentioned in terms of they're all self-explanatory. But all these technologies, what has happened today is that they have become affordable today. Now, some of these things were also existing much earlier, but they were all very expensive. For example, prior to cloud, if any organization has to implement any system, they need to invest a huge capital expenditure on creating an infrastructure. They need to have people to manage that infrastructure. You need to have a data center with air cooling and those kind of infrastructure that is required 24 hours, power supply, battery backup, UPS, everything. Now today with cloud, you don't need these things. You can subscribe to a cloud provider for whatever infra that you want and straight away get on. So access to these things have become easier and they are now cheaper relative to get on board. And what happens is that every company, small or big, can leverage this. Like, for example, if you take a startup, every startup today is leveraging cloud and social media. Social media is something that is every brand uses it for interacting. So every brand has got a Facebook page, Instagram page, because people are generally sharing their opinion and views in these platforms. So presence in social media is important. Analytics is very important because today data is the new oil. You must have heard this saying many times. Because the more you know about your customer and the more you can leverage that data and provide him what he needs or what he is looking for, that much more stickiness you will find, you will get on with the customer. And similarly, IoT, robotics are there probably today. If you see any warehousing, many of these large warehousing, platforms, they all have robotics in some form or the other. And robotics are also there in certain areas like car manufacturing, automobile manufacturing. A lot of high precision jobs are done by robotics. AI and machine learning and artificial intelligence. These are all something which are available for anybody because many of these algorithms are available free. You don't have to really invest time on writing those algorithms. What is important is to see how you can leverage those algorithms, what algorithm will work where, and whether you have the necessary data to leverage these technologies. Virtual reality, augmented reality is something which is there. You must have seen, many companies leveraging this. Like, for example, you would have seen, let us say, a furniture shop, an online furniture shop. You are able to actually, superimpose your house layout and then place the furniture in that and see how does the furniture look. So similarly, when it comes to painting, if you look at Asian Paints, they have, all this virtual reality and augmented reality, which helps you to see how a painting will look when you do this, when you choose a particular paint. So you can leverage this technology for allowing people to try before they buy. Blockchain, again, is something that hot topic today. And I will not cover deeper into that because this is something that is fairly new still, but people are leveraging it, and this will become probably an important technology going forward. So embracing digital is not only important, it is something that every business has to mandatorily adopt. But at what scale, how much to adopt is something that depends upon what exactly is is the objective behind this digital exercise. So having understood that digital is important, let me talk to you about how to undertake a digital delivery. What is it that we have to do? So what I will be covering today is the digital journey has got basically 3 pillars, or you can call it 3 building blocks. The first building block is transforming customer experience. Ultimately, the purpose of doing digital is to enhance your customer experience, because the whole purpose of our existence depending upon having an engaged and consistent customer over a long period of time. So you must have seen many e-commerce sites, how they are leveraging data and helping you to shop in a much easier fashion than what you used to do earlier. So you would have noticed many things like recommendation engines. How can we have recommendation engines which can recommend product? Now, the recommendation could be based on the products that you have bought in the past, or it could also be based on people with similar profiles who have bought the product that you have bought. You must have seen Amazon sites many times. The people who bought this item also bought that item. So all these things are coming by leveraging data and analytics. And as I mentioned about digitizing customer touchpoints, how can you digitize and see and give them an experience where they don't have to physically come into the office. For example, bank is a classic example, how banks have transformed themselves. So today you don't have to visit the bank to open an account. Everything can be done from the comfort of your house. Everything is online. Everything can be, everything is digitized. The whole process happens seamlessly, and in half an hour, your account is opened, and then the card is sent back to you. The digital card reaches you probably by courier in a couple of days' time. So transforming customer appearance is the important pillar, because that actually drives why you are doing digital, because that's a fundamental pillar. Now, the second pillar, the most equally important pillar, is transform operational processes. Now, if you want to transform customer experience, you need to digitize your own operations first. And unless people within the organization have a digital mindset, you will not be able to go on and transform customer experience. So digitizing the process, introducing automation wherever possible. The routine, mundane works can be automated so that people can spend quality time on analytics and things like that, value-added work rather than doing transactions. And the entire employee experience within the company should also be digitally transformed, whether it is onboarding of an employee, whether it is his performance appraisal. So idea is that if you are able to digitally transform the people and the culture of people, and by giving them a digital mindset, you would be able to transform operational process in a much better fashion. And another key thing, of course, when you are transforming operational process, is that you have to improve, you have got to start relying more on data. And decisions should be data-enabled decisions. You will still have gut feel playing the role, because gut is not going to go away anywhere. But purely taking decision purely based on gut may or may not be the right approach. So as much as possible, if the decisions are data backed, that will help you to transform and improve performance better. The third pillar is transforming business models. Now, here we need to look at how can you augment your existing physical offerings. Like, for example, you are the retail business, you have retail offline stores. So can you have a digital online store? Now, for example, like company like a Lenskart, for example, now they allow you to try on the glasses before you buy. So you don't have to physically go to the Lenskart showroom to buy glasses. So that way you can offer different digital offerings to your existing channel. So people who want to try out various options and make up their mind, and then maybe they may come to your offline stores to pick up. Or customers who are very matured in digital shopping, they may probably buy everything online itself. The other thing is, how can you leverage data? And can you do something with this data? Can you monetize it? I will give you an example, couple of examples on this. Now, let us say you are an equipment manufacturer. Now, traditionally, what happens? You manufacture the equipment, you sell it to the customer, and then thereafter you may have some annual maintenance contract where you will service them. Now, suppose if you were to leverage technology and make the equipment enabled with some sensors, and if you are able to collect the operating data from those machines, maybe you can have a value-added service of remote troubleshooting to start with. That could be a service which you can start off with. Thereafter, probably you can extend this to say, can I offer the customer a predictive maintenance capability? That is leveraging the data, understanding how the machine is performing, and advising him, providing him with insights as to at what point of time, what parts needs to be changed. Take another example. For example, let us say a tire manufacturing company. Now, let us say if you are putting, let us say, IoT sensors and all in the tire, and if you are able to collect that data, you can even look at changing your business model itself in terms of, let us say, instead of selling tires, can you sell tire as a service? So a lot of such opportunities can come up once you understand what exactly you want to do and how are you going to approach your digital transformation. And these things help you to not only improve customer experience and in turn improve your operational efficiency and also increase your revenue by introducing new business models. Now, after understanding the digital building blocks, there are certain important criteria, so success factors that you need to keep in mind as to how do you make a digital transformation or a digitization journey successful. What is it that we need to keep in mind? The first thing is, of course, effective leadership. Now, like any other transformation exercise, it is important that the leadership is keenly driving it from the front. And they need to have effective leadership, not only in terms of bringing in the transformation, also these transformation will also come with a lot of cultural change. So how can they take along all the people and ensure that people are ready for embracing the digitalization? The other important success factor is in terms of, different business models may require, different type of leaders and leadership styles. Now, for example, I gave an example of, let us say, a tire where, instead of selling tire, you started, let us say, selling tire as a service. Now, the person who is a leader who is very good at selling tires may not necessarily be a good person to sell tire as a service. because it's a different business model and requires a different type of leader and leadership style, because the way you have to look at it, the way you have to talk to customer, everything becomes different. So it is important to identify the right business people to lead the business strategy. And IT plays a critical role in digitalization, because ultimately everything revolves around IT when it comes to digital transformation. So the IT leadership has to be good at creating business value. That means identify opportunities where it adds value. Don't try to implement technology just for the sake of technology. Always look at how the technology can add value, and then always embrace it at the right time, because sometimes you also need to ensure that you are ready for taking that step. So that assessment is important. And IT should always focus on, a lot of focus should go on customer facing initiatives or customer facing systems, because that is where the digital will add maximum value if you're able to change or improve customer experience. And of course, internal modernization, because as I mentioned, unless you transform your existing processes, you would not be able to transform your customer experience. And the IT leadership should engage, because digital has to be driven by everybody. So all functional heads will let us participate in this digital transformation journey. So IT leadership or the IT head has to be able to engage with all of them and drive the agenda together. It's all about ultimately ownership, because unless the digital leaders own up the initiatives in their respective area, only then the digital transformation will be successful. It should not be an IT decision or an IT system or an IT initiative. It should always be a business initiative supported by and driven by business people. And last but not the least is employees play a pivotal role, because unless ultimately it's all about, how the organization functions internally. So all the employees have to be, sorry about that. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, it's all about, unless the employees are, having a digital mindset, the chances of digital success is very dim. So we need to make sure that employees are also taken along, and they are also given the various digital tool sets so that they can also experience how a digital journey works. So that's on the digital side, where I hope I was able to answer these 3 questions which were around digitalization. So moving to the last theme.
Mr. Ramki, we have 5 minutes left.
5 minutes. Okay. Should I? Okay, I'll then probably rush through, because so the last is about security. So security is very important, and small scale and medium scale companies are actually the targets. The reason is very simple, because they don't have the expertise, they lack resources, and there are innumerable examples where how businesses have been compromised by simple things like phishing. A lot of money has been lost, a lot of files have been encrypted. So it is important that security is given importance, because if you look at it today, every business has a digital exposure. So there is no business that is doing everything without touching digital. For example, simple thing like email. Every business uses email, and email is the single most common medium. Almost 80% of the cyber attack or security breach happens because of mail. Of course, there's a lot of things that I can talk about this, but in the interest of time, I just wanted to say that, yes, no business is, independent of digital technologies, and security is something that has to be focused on. In terms of how to approach security, of course, you need to understand what you want to protect, have a layered approach so that you don't just put one big software or hardware solution thinking that everything is secure. It doesn't work like that. You will have to have multiple layers of security so that even if a breach gets passed, one layer gets breached, the other layer is available for you. And always look for solutions that are simple to administer. Look for solutions that offer intelligence, because many times these intelligence and insights may be an add-on service which they may not push at the time of buying the solution. But it is important that these solutions are subscribed for, these add-ons are subscribed for, so that ultimately you get intelligence and insights which will help you to take some decisions. Because at the end of the day, all this data that you get out of the security solution, you should be able to make use of the data and prevent security breaches. The other things are all in terms of security infrastructure. You have to keep updated, because as I was mentioning, every infrastructure needs to be updated with latest patches. That could be because of various reasons, because of technological advancements, or bugs that have been found by various people. So you need to keep upgrading it on a regular basis. Data backup, no matter whatever you do, having backup of data is very important. You need to have multiple levels of backup. You also need to have disaster recoveries and those kind of things, depending upon the criticality. Again, the strategy will depend upon how important is this data, what can happen if the data is not available, what is the minimum time that you can afford for a downtime of a system or lack of availability of data. And always user access should be limited. The principle should always be limited access. Give access only based on need, and do not provide access to everybody. And training is very key, because ultimately security breach happens through some employees within the company. So unless each employee is taken through security training on an ongoing basis, so that he understands what he should do, what he should not do, and this is something like a compulsory training that has to be invested on, and people have to be trained at least twice a year, if not more, going through various things with examples, and tell them what to do, what should not be done, so that they understand the importance of security. So that covers the security. The last one was in terms of how we can cover. So basically, we have a whole bundle of offerings around 4 areas, starting with IT strategy, where we can help you to define your IT strategy, define your application roadmaps, digital strategy, industry 4.0 strategy. We have an IT security strategy framework where we can help you building your security strategy, policies, governance model, help you to have a disaster recovery setup done. We can also help you with IT management in terms of setting up an org structure, setting up processes and delivery model, the vendor management strategies, package evaluations, and governance frameworks. That is one area of offering which is there. We also have an offering like a virtual CIO, which is nothing but, instead of having a CIO on your, at your own office, maybe you can have a shared resources of a senior CIO. The advantage is that the cost will be lower, because he may be available to you on different periods of time, and the virtual CIO can basically address all the areas that are there, right from strategy to security strategy to IT management and governance. So that's it from me, and thank you. So do we have time for questions?
Yes. So we have one question, Mr. Amki. So we'll just spend 5 minutes on questions.
Yeah.
So audience, in case you have questions, please raise your hand if you directly want to ask Mr. Ramakrishnan. On the chat box, I have one question. What is the SAP facilities of S4 HANA? Is the database AI driven for the reports that are required by the user? So, uh,
Okay.
so basically, what are the facilities that is available in S4 HANA?
See, S4 HANA is nothing but a new offering of the ERP product. So it has been designed fresh. So while it has all the functionalities of the ERP system, but it is built on the HANA database platform. So HANA is an in-memory platform, and it also has certain add-on facilities coming with the HANA database itself. Not that it has got AI or anything like that, but the database in terms of has got some powerful features. So you will be able to do analytics in a much better way. Reporting becomes better. And what happens is that since the data is residing on a memory, what happens is many of those reports you can extract it in near real time. Whereas in the earlier versions of ERP, SAP used to have aggregated data stored in a different place, and we used to the reports were being generated from the aggregated data. So sometimes that's why you may not be able to run all the reports on a real-time basis. So people will run a bad job at the night, and then the morning you will have a report. Whereas with HANA, there is no aggregation that is required, because the database is in memory and all the data is stored. Whatever is accessed is available on the memory, so it becomes faster to respond.
Right. So, do you think they will move on to an AI-driven reporting, since SAP 6.0 will be discarded by SAP by 2027?
No, SAP I think may probably go into a completely cloud-based system. So the future of SAP looks like they are going to first of all, that SAP RISE is what they are promoting. So it will be S4 HANA on the cloud, so that even smaller company can engage with them. Because earlier S4 HANA was only for larger companies. So going forward, I think S4 HANA will be packaged in such a manner that you can subscribe it for the cloud, even for as small as 5 users and 10 users. And AI reporting is something which, SAP has got a host of offerings around the ERP, something called Analytics Cloud. So they will continue to exist and evolve. So on the ERP side, they may not do too much in terms of, because ERP is only one source of data, right? Ultimately, when you talk about analytics or AI and all that, you need to have data, all other data coming from various other systems as well. So there will not be anything, the reporting may improve, the reporting may have analytics and things like that, but I don't think there will be anything to do with bringing some AI or anything like that on the reporting side, because AI again will require a lot of data, and typically it will be a platform like SAP Data Cloud and those kind of platforms are there, which will help you to leverage AI. Where data from ERP can move into that, and then you can run machine learning models or models on that.
Okay. So the next question is, what are the good practices to maintain security inside organizations to secure customers, suppliers, and other confidential information?
In terms of, one is you need to understand, you need to identify, what are the various information that you are capturing from these customers. So it could be in different systems. So first and foremost thing is to identify the different sources of data that is coming from there, and you need to have a strategy in terms of data access strategy, data retrieval strategy, data storage strategy, so that you can define who has access to this data, where this data will be stored. And once you have these things defined, then you have got tools available which can help you to protect the data. For example, something like information rights management can be enabled to make sure that any data which contains customer data is not accessed unless you have rights to access. So rights management can be used to protect confidential data. Other thing is not keeping the data always accessible, keeping the data always in some encrypted fashion, or sometimes data will be kept in an external data source, can only be brought in as and when needed. Multiple ways are there. There is no generic one thumb rule kind of things, but there are multiple ways to look at protecting the data.
All right. So the next question from Sunil is that are ERPs on cloud a good option to SMEs considering investment and security?
Definitely, it is a good option because cloud will help you to minimize your initial cost, and it will be faster. Go to market will be faster, and it is always going to be faster and cheaper to get on with the cloud, because and other thing also is that it takes away the headache of managing the infrastructure, because once you implement an ERP, you also need to manage it on a daily basis. Backups have to be taken. Somebody has to manage that infrastructure to make sure that the infrastructure is up and running all the time. Whereas with cloud, all these things come to you as part of the service, so it will become easier or faster to go on a cloud.
Okay. The last question for today. In what phases should an implementation of ERP be planned from the beginning?
Okay, there are multiple strategies you can adopt. Now, so let us say if you are doing it for the first time, then maybe you can look at, if your organization, let us say, has got multiple plants or multiple facility, you can start with implementing in one facility and then test it out. After that, then keep on implementing in other facility. That could be one approach. The other approach could be in terms of, let us say, my core problem is in, let us say, in procurement area. So you can decide to implement procurement across the company. That is one function across the company, and then you implement the other functions. The other approach could be in terms of, you have 2-3 lines of business, and you may choose to implement this in one line of business. All the functions, but only in one line of business, which could be maybe operated from one plant or 2 plant or whatever it is. So these are some of the, phased options that you can go with, either functional facing or location wise facing or line of business wise facing.
Right. So we have one question Mr. Harshil wants to ask. I'll just unmute him so that he can ask.
Yeah.
Hi, sir. Good afternoon. Thank you very much. Hello.
Yeah. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Yes. So basically, what I wanted to ask, we are going to implement ERP for the first time in our structure. We are a ceiling fan manufacturing company. So what I wanted to ask, that there are different phases and department where we need to set up an ERP system and implement it. So what I was asking, from what part or what beginning should we do during the start of the implementation schedule? Like what first department should be carried out and which one should be the last one?
Yeah, see, it is not necessary that you have to do department wise. You can always look at, implementing in all the departments also, because ERP, if you look at it, it is an integrated system. So what one person does will have an impact on the other person also. So for example, let us say if somebody receives a material in stores, it also impacts finance. It also, will, impact production. So, and it will probably, create a liability for your supplier. So it normally has an integrated approach, any ERP. So if it is possible to implement all the functions, at least for, let us say, one, if you've got, do you have multiple factories or only one factory?
No, right now we are only having one factory and we are expanding to a new premises.
Okay, so it's only one factory. So maybe you can look at it to see, again, it depends upon how many people you have and how how many people can be put on the project and those kind of things. Otherwise, that implementing everything would be better. But otherwise, probably you may have to look at which function today is most painful for you.
Okay.
Is, let us say, is sales a more painful area, or whether it is your inventory management and finance is a more painful area. So you can look at it that way, because the only disadvantage of this kind of an approach is that you will have to still maintain certain amount of data for the other things and keep feeding it manually into the system. Otherwise, what happens, for example, if you implement all the module, the moment somebody receives a material, in, let us say, same example, he receives a material, inventory will get updated, and also finance will get updated, and also your supplier liability also all will happen at the same time. You don't have to create it multiple times.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you, Harsh. So we have time for just one more question. If anybody wants to raise their hand and ask. All right. So no worries. If at all y'all do have any questions for Mr. Ramakrishnan, please send your questions to connect@anddiligence.com, or you can call us on the numbers that are given on the slide, and we will definitely get Mr. Ramakrishnan to address those questions. Thank you everyone for joining in on the session. Hope the session has added value to your current IT strategies and IT implementations. And like I said, we're going to be doing these sessions. We're going to try to do these sessions on a monthly basis with different experts and senior people. And we look forward to having you on our next set of sessions. Thank you very much. And we look forward to seeing you there. Have a good day. Thank you, Mr. Ramakrishnan.
Yeah. Thanks. Thank you all.